Hey everybody, I'm Jay Scherr with Jay Scherr Business Consulting. We help entrepreneurs, business owners, and other leaders maximize their potential, build rock-solid foundations for their businesses, and create more freedom in their lives. And you've joined Business Minds Coffee Chat. Maya Angelou said, "I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it." And Napoleon Hill said, "Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit." Well, on today's episode, we're going to dive into the power of the human spirit. We'll explore how to overcome adversity, turn pain into purpose, shift your mindset, build resilience, and more. My guest is a wife and proud mom of two. She was at the top of her game in the fitness industry, appearing on leading magazine covers and vitamin bottles, and sponsored by Nike. All that changed when a horrific accident turned her world upside down. She didn't give up. She chose to not only live, but to thrive. Fast forward to today, she's a leading expert in the field of resilience, transformation, and health and wellness, a TEDx and internationally renowned motivational speaker, best-selling author, coach, and host of a globally top-ranked podcast. She's been featured in popular media outlets including Forbes, USA Today, The Doctors, The Today Show, and many, many others. Please welcome the woman who's helping all of us shift our mindset, embrace the present moment, and cultivate resilience while sparking more joy, Amberly Lago. Amberly, it is so great to see you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you. And that is the best introduction I think I've ever had. Can you just hang out with me all the time and just go everywhere with me and introduce me? That was
Whatever you need.
incredible. You're incredible. Thank you so much for having me on. I've been excited to get to talk with you. So thank you so much.
It is my pleasure. And I just want to share with you and with our entire audience that researching you and consuming your content, watching your videos, listening to your podcast has not only been inspiring, but it really has opened my eyes and had me asking bigger and better questions about my own life, about working through my own challenges and so forth. And I first want to thank you for that because you're prolific in the work that you put out. And I know our audience is going to learn so much from you today. So let's dive right in. I thought a good starting point just to kick off the conversation would be for you to share with all of us what your favorite thing is about yourself and why that particular thing.
That no one's ever asked me that, but just yesterday I got to spend some time. So I record a podcast at a studio in downtown Dallas, and I had four friends fly in to be on the show, and one of the friends, actually, he's one of my doctors, and so it was a real honor to have him on the show. And him and his wife we were going to go grab a bite to eat after we were all finished. So they had been in the studio audience watching some of the other recordings, and we're walking out, and he looks at me, and this is the first time to meet him. We'd done every visit by Zoom, and he looks at me, goes, have you always been so like upbeat and positive? And I said, well, I've always been a little bit different. And I kind of laughed, and his wife said, well, different's good. And I said, I remember in high school, I was, you have the different cliques. You've got the band kids, the popular kids, the drama kids or whatever. And so I was in the popular group, but I was friends with everybody and I talked to everyone. And I remember one of the girls in the popular group came up to me and she said, now, Amberly, you cannot be in this group if you're going to go around talking to those people and those people. And I said, well, then I said, those are all my friends and I'm going to talk to all of them because I like them and why not talk to them? And So for about a couple of days, they were like, you can't be in our group. And I'm like, whatever. I'm just happy to be around. And they came back later and said, oh, I guess you're going to keep talking to everyone. So I guess you can be in our group. But I love people. I love and connecting with others. And that's my favorite thing that I get to do, whether it's through my book, the people that I've met through my book, or whether, my favorite thing, people ask me what I like about speaking, and they think maybe it's being on stage speaking. And actually, I do love that. But my favorite thing is being able to connect with people after I'm off stage. And people are always surprised that, oh, you're staying for the whole event. I'm like, yeah, I'm here to try to add value to the event, to try to learn more about other people. And so I think maybe that's my, I guess something that I actually like about myself is that I can always find the good in every situation. I can see the good, and I have trained myself to actually hunt for the good. When sometimes it can seem pretty bad, I think there's always a lesson and always a blessing.
I love that so much. And it's ironic that you mentioned finding the good because I was on a podcast recently that was just released, and that a very similar question was asked of me, and they were asking if there was a particular person who I would want to have a conversation with and ask a question of. And that person could be either living or no longer living. And I said Mahatma Gandhi, because I've always found it fascinating that Gandhi, with all that was happening in the world, everything that he was inundated with, he could always find a way to find the good in a situation and find the good in other people and look for peaceful solutions, peaceful resolutions to life's challenges, to world challenges. And I just thought that was so fascinating. And to hear you say something similar about finding the good in people, I think that's a beautiful gift to have. And it's also something that I think we can all learn to improve on.
Yeah, and I've always I I was always taught, my mom always taught, manners and how to be kind, and I grew up with a lot of faith. But through my journey, I was always in the fitness industry and never a partier. And then after I went through this traumatic experience and surgery after surgery and was diagnosed with an incurable nerve disease, which left me in pain, I started drinking and became a full blown alcoholic. So imagine going from being an elite athlete to full blown alcoholic, which there was a lot of shame around that, not just for me, but I was married to a cop, and he was like, wait a minute, there's no way you've got a problem. Like I was hiding it. It wasn't like I was out partying at the bars. I was like self-medicating. And by the grace of God, I got sober in 2016. And one of the things that I was taught when I started going to recovery meetings was look for the similarities, don't look for the differences. And that's really helped me because when I first moved to Texas, I lived in California for 31 years, and I had my meetings that were my favorite sobriety meetings that I went to every week, the same meetings every week. And it was women. I went to all women's meetings. And when I moved out here, I had a really hard time finding meetings, and I finally found a meeting. I guess it hadn't been updated where the recovery meetings were. And so I would drive to this church and I'd be like, where are all the cars? No one's here. And I knew I needed to get to my meetings because that's how one of the ways I stay sober. And I finally found a meeting, and I walk in and it's all men. And I walk in and I'm like, oh, am I not supposed to be here? Is this an all men's meeting? And they're like, oh no, it's a mixed meeting. There's just more guys here. And I was like, okay. And I was a little uncomfortable. And for the first couple of weeks, I was like, I don't know. I don't know. This is just so different. I, and then I was like, Amberly, remember, look for the similarities, not the differences, because a lot of these guys are old timers. I'm talking with like 30 years of sobriety. They're up, 70, 80 years old. And I'm like, well, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a female. Like, I'm an athlete. I'm a go getter. Like, I had to look for the similarities. And you know what? I love these men now. They're family. I come in, we hug or fist bump, and I feel at home and I feel safe. And so feeling safe is just, it's very important to me. And I think that when we're able to look for those similarities, we all have something in common. I mean, even you and I, when we first got on before we started recording, I was like, oh my goodness, we have so much in common, more than I knew. And so
Right.
I think that when you look for that, and look for the good, uh, I think life just gets better.
I would agree with you. So just to tie a bow around what you just mentioned in those meetings and finding those similarities, give us maybe one or two of the similarities that you did discover with that particular group of men, and how that then became a meeting that you really appreciated being involved in and found that these individuals were like family, became like family. What were the similarities?
Well, it's to have some of these men, these big, strong, tough men that come in and they feel safe and they can be vulnerable,
Hmm.
and they can even get a little teary eyed, because there was a part of me that thought, oh gosh, I don't want to cry in this meeting. You know what I mean? I got to be tough. I got to grit it out. And then I was like, oh no, he's emotional. I can be emotional too. I think that when you can be vulnerable, it gives other people permission to be vulnerable as well. And I made sure to raise my hand and share kind of a little bit about me and why I was there, and kind of qualify myself as, yep, I got it too. Me too. And one of the similarities that I noticed is, there was one guy in there who he started his day with prayer every day. And I was like, oh, well, I start my day out with prayer too. But what I learned from him, just from going, okay, I'm open to learn these similarities, is he said something that changed a lot for me. And I've started doing this, is he said, but you know what? I get down on my knees and pray. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start getting down on my knees and praying. And when I did that, it really reminds me how small I am and how big God is, and how he's got it. I don't have to have the weight on my shoulders. I can turn it over. There was another fella in there who talked about how when he gets anxious or worried, he walks around and he will say the serenity prayer. And I have the serenity prayer written on my wall right behind my computer, and it's grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that that prayer helps no matter what you're going through. Like, sometimes we just need to be reminded, okay, what can we change? What can we not change? And let's focus on what we can change. Um, and there was another guy there that, I mean, besides a lot of them, there was another guy in there who, he's an athlete, and he drank exactly like I drank. He wasn't out at the bars partying. He was sneaking his drinking, trying to hide it from his family. He didn't want people to know. He was doing it to try to stuff down the pain. And so I was like, me too. And so I think when you can talk to somebody and you're like, oh gosh, they totally get it. Like, they're telling my story. It connects you on a deeper level.
Amazing. And it humanizes you, it humanizes the situation. And I always find that even though at times in life we may feel like we're going through something alone, but we never really are. And I believe that we can go so much further together.
Mm-hmm.
And when
And
we're
well, no, I'm sorry, Aaron, but what you just said, that's exactly what I thought. I felt like I'm the only one. Nobody's going to understand this pain. Nobody's going to understand this. I can't share this. And so, yeah, we feel like we're the only one, but there's always somebody out there that's gone through something almost identical or almost the same.
absolutely. So I want to wind the clock back for just a couple of moments because your story, which of course we're going to get into, and you have touched on a couple of seeds, if you will, which we'll go ahead and talk about those here shortly. But you had mentioned about feeling safe, right? Wanting to feel safe. And your story is one of resilience, one of grit. But that resilience and grit, when I did my own research on you, didn't just start after your accident.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like you were cultivating resilience even as a young child.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love it if you would share with all of us, with a focus on that desire to feel safe, but also learning about resilience yourself. Share part of your story with all of us to give some context around that, because your story really begins much earlier in life than the accident that you had.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for taking the time to like research and look at things. And I'm like, oh, when I have my videographer, when he has to like go through my presentations and he gets clips, I always go, I'm sorry. I'm like, Cole, I'm sorry. You got to sit through listening to me again. So I just thank you for, going through. But yes, I think that I, definitely everything that I have been through, the way I was raised, almost prepared me. My mindset, the grit, the resilience, the tools that I had. Now, I obviously had to learn a lot, and I still have to learn a lot. I'm always learning. I love to learn. But I think a lot of the way that I grew up did almost prepare me for the biggest challenge of my life. And, times were not easy. My parents were divorced when I was 8, which, I mean, so many people don't grow up in a perfect childhood by any means, but it got really bad when my mom remarried shortly after she was divorced to my stepfather, and then the sexual abuse began right away. And that sexual abuse. So I think when I say safe, I never felt safe. Like in my home, I didn't feel safe. It's still kind of crazy, Jay, that even in my own home, and this is wild, and I don't know why I just thought about this, but it popped in my head. I'm in my own home and I'll go to the bathroom and lock the door. That's weird. I'm like, I just thought of that. Um, but that trauma, man, there's been times I'm like, oh, I've dealt with that. That I'm like, goodness, man, I just got triggered. How did I get triggered? What? And I'll get upset or I'll get scared. And then now I just know when I get triggered, I'm like, okay, I'm triggered, but I have the tools to get through that faster. And I know that I can get through it. And I know that I'm actually really safe. So when I say it's important for me to feel safe, growing up in a home where you have a stepfather who not only sexually abused me, but the emotional abuse as well. Um, so he said that if I told anyone that he would tell my mom, or he said he would kill my mom, and I believed him. And so I didn't want to tell anybody. I was scared and I knew it wasn't right, but he was really big. And when I told him it wasn't right, he's like, oh, yeah, this is right. This is how dads teach their daughters. And I still knew it wasn't right. And so I finally got the courage up to tell my dad. And I said, now, Dad, you have to promise not to tell anybody. And I told him what was happening. I said, you can't tell anybody, or he said he would kill Mom. Well, my dad, he didn't grow up in the best childhood, and he kept his promise and he didn't tell anybody and he didn't do anything. And in that moment, there were two things I felt. Didn't know kind of what that was, that feeling, but it made me feel not even worthy enough of being protected or loved. Like I wasn't important enough to protect, or who cares, oh well. And then the second thing I thought was, well, if I'm going to be okay, then it's up to me to protect myself. And the next time my stepdad came in my bedroom, I kicked him and pulled his hair and punched him and did everything I could. And it was like the look on his face was shocked. And he walked out and he never laid a hand on me again, but the threats still came. Like I remember we'd be sitting at the kitchen table and my mom would be standing behind us doing dishes and he would mouth to me like, you wait till your mother leaves. Like always trying to scare me, always trying to intimidate me. And I don't care about crying too much anymore because for so long, for so many years, I didn't cry because it was my defense, because he would just go down, like talk down on me, like over and over and over until I would start to cry. And then when I would cry, he would laugh at me and say, see, I knew I could make you cry. And so I was like, well, I'm just not going to cry. And I didn't cry until my oldest daughter was probably, I don't know, I think she was about 6 maybe. And we were coming through the airport and we missed our flight and I dropped all my bags and I just started crying. He goes, Mama, I didn't know you knew how to cry.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, this is no way to live. I can't keep sucking this up and pretending like it's okay. We heal what we reveal. And this way of life cannot become my family's way of life. Like, I want my daughters to know that they're safe, they're loved, they can express themselves, they can cry if they want to. So you can imagine in our household, though, with her dad being this tough cop and me being like the way I am, I'm like, you cry. It's okay. You cry. And he'd be like, suck it up. It's not that bad. And I'm like, bless her heart. She's going to need some therapy. You know what I mean? And so,
Two ends of the spectrum there.
yes, yes. And so I wrote about it in my first book. And at first it was kind of scary to write about, but it was very cathartic to write about it. And I have to tell you, I have had more people, not just women, but men come up to me and say, thank you so much for sharing that and sharing how you got through it. And because now I know that it's not a secret. I don't have to hold my head down in shame. I can walk with dignity. And I'm like, if for any other reason alone, I wrote the book for that reason right there.
It's amazing. And I thank you for sharing that with all of us on today's episode. So I would like you to just briefly touch on what some of the things that you did to heal through that process, to heal that trauma. And today, where you mentioned that when you go to the bathroom, you lock the door. Were you locking the door as a child as well? Was that something you were doing to try to protect yourself?
Well, not just that. I was never home. And
Okay.
so luckily, I would try to get home in time that like people were going to bed. And so what I did was, as a kid, I did whatever I could to make myself feel happy, to make myself more proud of myself. And so I dove into athleticism. I ran track, and I started winning, and I got us to district. I set a record for running the fastest mile in Texas, which I'm sure has been beaten long time ago by now. But I really think, it's so important for children to have an outlet, especially a healthy outlet. So mine was dance. Dance brought me joy. And so I lived either at the school, doing, track, choreographing for the cheerleaders, choreographing for the drill team, choreographing for the drama department.
Hmm.
I was so involved in school. I was school mascot, so I was the lion for the Greenville High School. I loved getting people cheered up and pumped up and excited for the game. I didn't know that much about football, but I knew that I loved seeing the crowd go wild and getting them to do the wave. You know what I mean? So I did whatever I could that would make me happy, that would, I became an honor student. I had all AP classes, and I graduated Miss Greenville High School. Now, I'm only saying that because had I not had dance and track and a good circle of friends, and I worked 4 jobs by the time I was a senior in high school, by the way. And all those things, though, they kept me out of harm's way, and they allowed me to build upon the things that brought me joy. And that's why I always think to this day, you can have pain and you can have joy simultaneously. You can just choose to build upon the joy. I mean, as we're sitting here, so I'm in constant chronic pain all the time, and I've got my pants leg kind of rolled up on my left leg, but it brings me such joy to get to talk with you and get to be on your show that I don't think about the pain. But if I were to just sit here and not do anything and just focus on the pain, I feel like that pain would get worse and worse, and I would get depressed.
So speak to depression then. And you had already mentioned, of course, that you became an alcoholic and that you were drinking to mask the pain
Hmm.
that you felt through the accident that you had. So talk about depression that you experienced yourself. And what I would really appreciate you doing, if you would, this would be a true gift for our audience, is to share some of the tools and strategies that you've used to help you navigate times of depression, some of the things that you were experiencing yourself. So from your own life experience, just share some of those tools and strategies that you've put into practice.
Well, I will tell you the quickest and easiest way to shift your mindset and feel better about your situation or your circumstances is, this sounds so simple, but it's gratitude. And I've always been a very grateful person. And, I think when I really could see just how drastically this changed everything for me was when I was laying in a hospital bed and I was looking down at my leg. I didn't know if, today was the day they were going to amputate it. My leg was held together by steel rods, and I was in such excruciating pain. And I started spiraling down, thinking, what if I can't walk again? What if my husband doesn't love me anymore? What if I lose my job? What if, the list went on. And then I just went, stop. I can keep going down that road of what ifs, or I can choose to focus on what I do have. And I really think that gratitude is alchemy, and it allows you to focus on what you do have instead of what you don't have, and what you can do instead of what you can't do. And it is something that I practice. And I say practice because I practice it every day, because I know some days it's hard when you are going through an authentic catastrophe to really focus on what you're grateful for, but there's always something to be grateful for. And when I was sitting in that hospital bed, I was great. I couldn't go outside. I could sit there and complain about how I'm stuck in this hospital bed and can't even use the bathroom on my own. Or I could look at the blue sky and that I have a window that I can actually see outside. I have breath. I've got incredible nurses and I know all their names. I've got incredible doctors. I've got friends and family that are going to, that are bringing me food. I have my own little fridge in my hospital room. But, even today, there are times when I'm like, oh gosh, I have so much to do. I'm like, oh no, I get to do these things. So whether it's a long to-do list and first of all, remember, when you've got a full plate, we're the one who filled up that plate. Usually it's ourselves
True.
who's filled it up. But there's been times when I've been at the gym and I mean, I still have my workout clothes on right now. I worked out this morning and but there's been times when I've sat in the parking lot and I start scrolling through Instagram instead of going in there, and I've learned to talk to myself instead of listen to myself. And what I mean by that is if I listen to myself, I'm like, yeah, Amberly, your leg's hurting. You just take the day off. And I'm like, I talk to myself. I'm like, no, get in there. Like we have to be our own coach sometimes and get in there because you're going to feel better. You're going to have more energy. You're going to have more self-confidence. You're going to be in less pain. Get your butt up and go. Get off Instagram and go work out. You get to work out because there was a time when you couldn't. So I think that gratitude is probably, I write so much about gratitude in my new book, Joy Through the Journey, that they sent me the index edits. And I was like, oh, wow, there is a lot of gratitude in this book. But it's because I practice it every day. And I even have a group of ladies. Like if it's hard for you to remember to have a gratitude practice, find a friend or accountability partner. I have a group of ladies and we use an app. I'm not affiliated with this app, but it's called My Spiritual Toolkit. And it's got this little list and you write 10 things you're grateful for and you click a button and it sends it right to your friends. And it just makes it easy because it's one thing when you're grateful, but when you get to read what other people are grateful for, that can shift your perspective as well.
That's beautiful. And like you, I also have my own gratitude practice, which I write every single morning. And it may be one thing that I write down in a book. It may be 10 things or more. But I'm always looking for the thing that I'm grateful for in that moment. And so I've been doing that for years. What I wasn't doing, though, until within, let's say, the past 3 years, is actually reaching out to people to let them know why I'm grateful for them, right? Identifying something about that person that I truly am grateful for. And it's amazing. I do that for me, right? But I want that person to know that this is what my heart is sharing. But it's amazing the comments that you get back. And you don't do it to receive comments back, right? You're doing it because you just want to give something that is on your mind and on your heart in that moment and to recognize something in someone else. So I'm glad you shared that because that has become more important to me today than it ever was in the past.
Yeah, and you know what, Jay? So I have a mastermind. It's a group of entrepreneurial mindset. Like they're women who are from all different areas, but they're all entrepreneurs. And it's amazing, just like last night, when I can send a message to one of the ladies. I mean, we're in constant contact every day. We have a group chat, so we're always, connected. But when you can see the potential or you can really pour some belief in someone and get them to go, oh, wow, it can change their whole day, their whole career. Sometimes we need people to believe in us or just to encourage us or to see in us what maybe we can't see. And I love being able, I got goosebumps just saying that because I love it so much when I get to work with these ladies and get to do that because that's where I think success really lies is not when you can like use your strengths to suck it up and keep going, but when you can use your strengths to be of service to others and their success, that's where I feel like true fulfillment is and true success really is.
Absolutely. That is so well said. So we have been skirting around this a bit, but you were in the hospital for months, multiple surgeries, 30 plus surgeries, and you had an accident, a horrific accident that changed your entire life, changed the trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us a snapshot of what happened on that fateful day and how life truly changed for you? And what I'd really be interested to hear from you is kind of a compare and contrast, right? So before, and I mentioned this at the intro of the show, you've been in the fitness industry for many, many years, professional dancer. Matter of fact, I'll let you tell this story, but I know the first video that you appeared in as a dancer, but I'll let you share that, but I love it. But let's do a little compare and contrast in where life is today. And you talked about life fulfillment, the way that you're changing lives today compared to how you were changing and influencing lives in the past. So let's talk about that accident.
Okay, you know what's so wild is while I mean, gosh, you're so good. I'm learning how to be a better interviewer because of you. You are just
Oh,
such
thank
a
you.
great interviewer. And I got to work on my radio voice too. But while you're sitting there sharing this, what I realized, like when you're saying the contrast between like then and now.
Mm-hmm.
So this is wild. I haven't worn this jacket in a while. So when the day that I had my motorcycle accident, I had just finished training clients. I had ran 11 miles in my best time and actually beat my running partner. He was not too happy about that. I was like on top of the world and remember getting on my Harley and thinking, I'm going to take a little bit longer instead of going right to it's shorter to get home. I'm going to go left so I can just soak in some of this California sun and feel the wind in my hair. And I had on a Lululemon hot pink jacket. It was a brand new jacket. And I'm riding down the road, and this SUV is in a hurry, and they're coming out of a parking lot. And so they shoot it out of the parking lot. And I basically there was nothing I could do but try to jump off my motorcycle. I let off the clutch, tried to jump, and I got T-boned. And I was told I looked like a doll, like floating through. I mean, I was thrown 30 feet and sliding across the asphalt. And I had this hot pink, not this one, but I had a hot pink jacket almost identical to this one. And the reason I say that is because I had a backpack on and I'm sliding across and I finally come to a stop and I look down and my leg is completely crumbled into pieces. I'm in so much pain. There's blood everywhere. I was hanging onto my leg. I really thought if I let go of my leg that it would fall off my body. And the reason I say, and all the entrepreneurs listening, maybe you'll understand this. One of the first thoughts I had was, this can't be good. I may have to train clients on crutches for a while. Like I was already thinking, how am I going to keep working? I got to keep a roof over our head. Like, how am I going to train my clients? And then one of my next thoughts was, oh, my husband's going to be so mad at me because I had pulled pork in the back of in my backpack,
Oh my
and
gosh.
it's going to be pulled pork all in his brand new back. I had no idea that the backpack
Wow.
was completely shredded. It basically saved my life. If I wouldn't have had that backpack on, my spine would have been shredded across the asphalt. And when paramedics got there quickly. We got in the back of the ambulance. I'm strapped to a gurney, and they start to cut my jacket off. And this is how crazy I am. I'm like, no, 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 don't cut the jacket off. I'm going to save the jacket. And I start wiggling out of the jacket. Jay, I had no idea the whole back of the jacket was shredded except for where the backpack was.
Wow.
And one of my clients got me this hot pink. They found it because there were no more Lululemon jackets. They found me. And it's the little things, right? It's the little. But I was rushed to the hospital, and they had to put me in induced coma because I'd lost so much blood. I mean, I didn't realize it that my femoral artery was severed, but you can bleed out pretty quick. I had a guy he ran over and made a tourniquet on my leg right away. He basically saved my life. They put me in induced coma, and when I woke up out of a coma, the first thing I learned was they said, I'm so sorry. There is just nothing we can do for you. Your leg is like a war wound. You have a 1% chance of saving it, and we're going to have to amputate. And in that moment, all I heard was, wait a minute, you just said I had a 1% chance. So I was like, you're saying there's a chance. You're saying there's a chance. And I was like, we need to find a doctor who's going to be willing to take that chance. And let me tell you, it took an act of God. It took a lot. I mean, my husband had a lot of connections. We had a lot of friends. We had a family friend that was a very successful doctor who had a lot of connections. It took a lot of pulling strings. We finally found one doctor who was a trauma specialist who said, "I'll try," and
Amazing.
got transferred to Cedars, where Dr. Wiss did 34 surgeries, and they saved my leg. And I thought the worst was over, and I get out of the hospital, and a little while after, I think they're going to be so proud of me because I'm like upright on crutches. But I was in excruciating pain. But the grit as a kid being an athlete, the grit as a dancer, being a dancer, dancing on point, dancing through injuries, pushing so hard as an athlete, like pushing past pain, I just thought that's part of it. And when I went in, they said, no, you've got something very serious. And my first thought was, well, yeah, duh. I got hit by an SUV. And he goes, no, you have complex regional pain syndrome. Your life is never going to be the same. You'll never work again. You'll never walk again. He told me to get back in my wheelchair. And that just wasn't the vision I had for me. And I think that when we decide the vision that we want for our life, and we start to become a part of that vision, and we work hard for that vision, and we set these small attainable goals along the way, and we celebrate even the smallest victory along the way, that we can achieve what somebody else might tell us is impossible. Well, maybe it's impossible for them, but it doesn't have to be impossible for you. So
So
I
good.
work, I walk, I can even run. It's not very pretty, but I can run after my daughter.
So I did see that. I saw a photo of you running. You had, I think you were wearing a bathing suit, if I remember correctly, right?
Oh,
And you
that's
were
the first
told you're never going to wear a bathing suit again. And here you decide that you're going to do what you're going to do.
Well, that picture is real special to me. I know which one you're talking about. It's the one I think that they used for Health Magazine.
Yes.
That picture's so special to me because I had a doctor tell me, oh, well, you'll never wear shorts again because of all your scars. And so I wore a bathing suit. and another doctor who said, well, you'll never run. And it was the first time I ran again. It took me 2 years, and I would run and fall down and get back up, and I'd run a little bit and fall down and laugh and cry tears of gratitude and then run again. But it was just a really magical day to get to run on the beach with my daughter.
That is so amazing. And, you mentioned Dr. Wiss, and I want to make sure that everyone who's listening and watching right now knows that your first book, which is True Grit and Grace, you talk about this story, you talk about Dr. Wiss, and you actually gave Dr. Wiss a copy of your manuscript of your first book before it was released. And what a remarkable story in and of itself. But to think that there was a 1% chance, and through so many, through grace, you were able to find that one person who could do this. And that must have been remarkable for you to be able to capture your feelings and your heart in words and be able to share that with him. What was that experience like? And he ended up writing a book himself and talking about you.
Yes, I guess I was the most complicated case that he had ever had. It was a real miracle that he saved my leg, not once, but twice, because I actually broke some titanium in my leg. Um, my husband was like, leave it to my wife to break titanium. How do you even do that? But yeah, he wrote a book and I'm in his book. But no, when I say it was scary, so he was the first person I let read my manuscript. And I will just say, like, if anybody's listening, I guess, do you know that there's 81% of people want to write a book? Did you know that?
81% want to write a book?
Want to write a book. Guess how many
Okay.
people actually write a book?
Oh, gosh. Obviously, a much lower number. Tell me the percentage.
1%.
Wow.
And when I decided to write a book, because I thought there's no way this could have happened for just no reason. If I can write this book and even one person reads it and I give them hope and inspiration to keep moving forward, then I'm going to write a book. And I had so many people go, I didn't even own a computer. I didn't own a computer. I was the fitness girl. I wrote 90% of my book. Like, I still have all these like spiral notebooks on my desk because I like to write instead of type when I'm being creative. Um, so many people are like, you don't have a college education. You will never write a book. And I not only wrote a book, it came out when it came out, it published, the day it published, they asked me to be on the Today Show, and it became a bestseller. And the only reason I'm sharing that is because I know somebody listening, we all have a story to share. And I know somebody listening, you have a book and it's on your heart. It might be a sticky note on your computer, like my next book that I have just written. It comes out in February. The sticky note is still here. It was here for 2 years. And I finally was like, I'm doing this. I'm writing it. Well, I am encouraging you to write that book because you are perfectly qualified to help the person that you once were. You are perfectly qualified to be that give that roadmap for somebody to thrive or succeed or whatever your story is, but write the book. If a girl like me that didn't even own a computer can write a book and now has written, well, this is my third because I had a collaboration book and now Joy Through the Journey is coming out, but in February 11th. But you would think maybe this is my third book that I would be less scared. I just did a post about, I woke up with my heart pounding like, oh my gosh, this book is going to be out in the world. What if people don't like it? The what ifs started happening again. Like,
Yeah.
when I gave it to Dr. Wiss, I don't know if I even slept that night because I was like, oh, he's going to read it. What if he hates it? What if he just tells me to take everything about him out of the book? You know what I mean? And then I'm just like, you know what? Ask yourself, is it the best? Did you do your best? Are you sharing your truth? Do you believe in your message? Then that's all there is. And then I'm like, you know what? I have done my best, and I'm going to let God do the rest, and I just pray that it helps somebody get through challenges or hard time. My first book was more of a memoir meant to inspire, and Joy Through the Journey is more of a self-help book. It's more of a how-to book. And it's for people who, whether you're an entrepreneur like me, who was hitting like health challenges and burnout, or you're dealing with a real authentic catastrophe, whatever it is, to help you tap into your joy and be a joy. I always like to remind myself, go out there and do some joy spotting today. Meaning,
I love that.
Go out there and look for things that bring you joy, because they're out there. You just have to be alert and aware. And sometimes you just have to slow down enough to, my dad always said, I would tell him all these exciting things I was doing, and he would say, well, Amberly, just don't forget to enjoy the journey. And I was like, wow, that's a good point. Like, yeah, what is it all about if we're not enjoying the journey?
That's right. Well, it's amazing that we make a choice every day to see what we choose to see. You and I may look at the exact same thing and see it very differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's through the power of perspective. It has a lot to do with how we were raised, our biases, and the information we consume every day. But we have that choice. If you choose, I'm going to go back to something we talked about toward the beginning of the conversation, looking for the good. If you choose to see the good, you'll find the good. But as you said, you have to be open to it. You have to be aware and go eyes wide open. It's there. Find it, celebrate it, and acknowledge it. So when you see someone doing good, when you see someone that is doing something that is remarkable, even the smallest thing, acknowledge it. Recognize it in that person if you're able to, in that moment.
Yeah.
What a difference that makes in the lives of other people.
And you saying that reminded me of something. So we recently lost our dog. So we had our dog, little Goldie, and she was like a therapy dog for me. She went through so many different surgeries with me. And who would have imagined like this 2.5 pound ball of fur? Like, she was only 2.5 pounds. But my goodness, she was like a part of our family. And the way we lost her was really tragic. And I could not stop crying. I mean, I was just a mess. I could not stop crying. And so I purposely, I was like, okay, I'm going to do what brings me joy. Like, I am really sad and I might be having times where I start crying again, but I'm going to do what brings me joy. And so I started putting up our Christmas tree. The earliest we've ever put our Christmas tree up. I put our Christmas tree up. I started decorating it. I think it looks better than any other year. I just was decorating the whole house like Christmas because that brought me joy. Then I was like, okay, I've done all that. I don't want to sit down because I know I'm going to start crying and I know I need to feel these feelings, but I just want to feel a little bit better. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to go out so I can see strangers and smile at them and see them smile back at me. And so I was just focusing on, okay, I'm going to be joy spotting. I'm going to look for the joyful things at Home Goods. And do you know the first thing that I saw when I walked in was a sign that said joy. And I was like, okay, well, there's my joy. I
That's
see it,
it.
God. I was like, I feel like that's a little God wink from you. And then I would just, everybody I saw, I would smile and say hello. And just them smiling back at me just lifted my spirits so much. And it just shows that, we aren't meant to do hard things alone, and that a smile can go a long ways. And so when you're out and about, if you try walking through the market and just smiling at somebody, and you know what? Hey, they might not smile back. It's okay. Smile at the next person. And I think it's rare that if you actually really smile at somebody and they don't smile back, maybe they're just really having a bad day.
Could be.
Maybe they need a
But
hug.
that's right. There you go. But that shouldn't stop you from doing your act of kindness, whatever that happens to be and whatever you're comfortable with. So I love that. And thank you for sharing that story. And I'm sorry about your little dog. Oh boy, that one brings up a lot of emotion for me as well, because we get so attached. We love our family and they become family members, but there's a very different type of relationship with our animal friends. There
Yeah,
just is.
for sure.
So with all of that said, this really has been such a remarkable conversation, and I know that everyone that's watching and listening right now can just feel your energy and the way that you are changing and impacting lives today. You have such an incredible outlook on life. I want to remind everyone that it takes work. I mean, Amberly, you've shared throughout our conversation today that you do the work, right? It's like every day, whatever that happens to be for you, starting with a gratitude practice, prayer, all of those things, right? Just working on your mindset so you can show up to be your best self, to be able to serve other people. And, I asked you the question about comparing and contrasting kind of pre-accident
Oh,
to life today, but I'll just share this with you. And it kind of brings up the question of identity, right? You're on the cover of magazines, on Shape magazine, you're on vitamin bottles, you're dancing, you're doing all these incredible things from an athletic perspective. And then you have the accident, everything changes. But I look at the impact that you're making today. If you could summarize for us, if you think about the days when you were on the magazines, fitness, all that sort of stuff, dancing and so on and so forth, the way that you felt about yourself compared to the way you feel about yourself today, is there a comparison?
oh, yeah. I mean, I was so caught up in my identity as I was the fitness trainer. I
Mm-hmm.
owned Amberly. My business name back then was Amberly Brown Fitness. That was my company. All these people worked with me.
Mm-hmm.
I hired other. It wasn't that I was just a personal trainer. I had a whole team of trainers that I hired that worked along with me. Um, and but my whole identity was caught up into, you know, what I look. I mean, this sounds really shallow, but it was what I looked like because I was a walking billboard for
Mm-hmm.
my training business. I wouldn't have been on vitamin, bottles, on the label of vitamin bottles and in magazines and stuff if I didn't love fitness and I didn't enjoy working out and I wasn't healthy and eating right and all the things. But I was so caught up into that was my identity that after the accident, it was like a loss of, okay, I'm the breadwinner and now I'm out of work. We had $2.9 million worth of medical expenses and a lien on our house.
Wow.
I'm completely scarred from the right hip all the way down. And it was funny, even walking out to the parking lot yesterday, the doctor that I interviewed yesterday, he goes, well, Amberly, I had on kind of fitted pants. And he goes, well, Amberly, you can't hardly tell that you don't even really walk with a limp. He goes, I can just tell that something's different with your leg because it bows out, because it's deformed. And I said, well, thank you. I said, I try to not walk with a limp as best. Sometimes I do and I don't realize it, but I try my best not to walk I want to walk without a limp. And it's just so different because I had to dig deep and go, well, where does my value come from? And I'm like, you know what? I'm worthy not because of how much money I bring in, or I'm worthy not because of the way I look, but I'm worthy because of the way I love. And
There
and
you go.
I think that if we all loved a little more and put more emphasis on that, I think that love each other. I think we need a lot more of that love and joy in the world.
There you go. I would agree with that one. So, Amberly, as we are wrapping up our conversation today, I could speak with you for hours. You're just such a your heart is just incredible, and I love listening to your stories and your insights because you're so sharing and so insightful, right? The way that you articulate your message just lands, and I know that everyone watching and listening right now are getting a tremendous value out of this conversation. So I would love it if you would give all of us a challenge. What is one thing that you would challenge our audience and me to do starting immediately?
I challenge you to go out there and be a joy sparker. So, meaning, how can you spark joy, not just in your life, but in someone else's life? So, that can be a smile, that can be a laugh, that can be getting somebody to dance. I was at this dinner with all these entrepreneurs, and they were like big time billionaires. And then there was me. I'm not there yet. Yet is the keyword.
Yet.
And I take my oldest daughter's in Connecticut in school, but I take my youngest daughter everywhere with me. And she's at this table, and it's all these very high-powered men. There was one female, but it's mostly men. And they said, now, Ruby, what is one thing that your mom does that just embarrasses you? And she right away was like, oh, she dances everywhere we go. She dances all the time. Well, I said, well, Ruby, dancing brings me joy. But yeah, it's embarrassing because I'll be in the supermarket and have to do pirouettes or something. And she's like, Mom, stop it. But I encourage you to go out there and be a joy sparker, do some joy spotting. That's what I always like to say. So
There
you
you
can
go.
thrive, not just survive to get through every day, but you can truly thrive.
That is so good. And here's my final question to you. What is the greatest gift that life has given you that you didn't realize at the time?
Um, I would probably say becoming an alcoholic. I know that sounds pretty
Mm.
crazy, but I am a grateful recovering alcoholic because it has really changed my life in such a powerful way. It's given me back, not just my life, it's given me back more. I've got a better, closer relationship with God. I have amazing friendships in recovery, sober sisters that I talk to every day, that we text each other what we're grateful for every day. And I felt really blessed that, there are a lot of lonely people suffering in silence. And I thought, thank goodness I don't have to suffer in silence anymore, that there's a way through, that there is a solution. So didn't realize it because I had so much shame about that, like a lot of shame. Um, but man, when we shine a light on shame, it disappears, and we heal what we reveal.
It's so good. Thank you for sharing that. And Amberly, what a brilliant conversation. I just want you to know how much I appreciate you, how much I appreciate your vulnerability, your your openness to allow this conversation to go in a multitude of different directions and sharing so much of your own insights, wisdom, and story. I'm just so grateful for you. Thank you so very much.
Well, thank you, Jay. You are amazing. I am telling you, I'm like, I gotta up my game for interviewing. You are such a pro.
Thank
No
you.
wonder everybody loves your show so much. I mean, you're just amazing, and I loved getting to talk with you, and I hope I added some value for everybody listening. And you know what? If I just want people to know they're not ever alone. So reach out to me. You can find me at amberlylago.com. You can find me on Instagram and all my crazy shenanigans in my stories at Amberly Lago Motivation. And yeah, reach out to me. You can send me a DM or email me from my website. But yeah, let me know that you heard it from Jay Scherr's show. And can't wait to get to talk to you again sometime soon, I hope.
Absolutely, me too. And we will provide links to all of your social handles, your website, how to purchase your books, how to join your mastermind. All of that will be in the show notes. And for all of you, I want to thank you so very much for watching and for listening today. I know you got so much value out of this one, just like I did. And I do have a quick favor. Would you please take just a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts? Let us know what you thought about this particular episode with Amberly. And as a matter of fact, my friends, while you are doing that, do exactly the same thing for Amberly's show. It is called the Amberly Lago Show. You are going to love it. Subscribe, rate, and leave Amberly a review as well. And to listen to more podcasts, all you need to do is visit jscherbusinessconsulting.com. Click that podcast button. And until next time, keep learning, keep growing. Make sure you run out and pick up a copy of Joy Through the Journey. And we'll see you on the next Business Minds Coffee Chat. Take care, everybody.